What's up, everybody? So today we are going to be doing a video with Millie Porkchop, puppy pup. We just got a new puppy, and I know I haven't been recording in a while, so I decided I'd record because I don't know, I just thought I'd give it a try. I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of pharmacy for pharmacists. So it's not. I would say give it the, 1 to 5, 5 being the greatest. It's probably like a 2. So pharmacy is a little rough right now for pharmacists, and so the big question that I'm posing is, should we unionize? Should pharmacists unionize? So actually, some pharmacists are unionized. I'm one of them. I'm in a union. I really like it because it gives you leverage. I think, management probably feels like they can't mess with you as much. There's all kinds of different concepts that are confusing, like seniority, and you get overtime and all of these things. In a chain retail setting, if you work 12 hours, you work 12 hours. You get paid for 12. If you're scheduled for 8 and you work 12 hours, you get paid for 8, So it's completely different working in a union. I really like it. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges facing pharmacists and what I think is pushing pharmacists to do things like these mass walkouts and things like that. And I think that's those pharmacists that did that are heroes, and I think it's a heroic thing to do. Anybody who walks off their job is worried that they're not going to have one. So it's really a heroic thing to do. I don't know if I would have been able to do it. Now, there are times when I was tempted to walk off without any kind of an organization or anything, any kind of an event, but there are a few things that are kind of facing pharmacy right now. One of the big things is it's called DIR fees. So there's a kind of a formula for how prescriptions are reimbursed, and then they added this other thing, which is this nebulous fee. It's supposed to have something to do with patient outcomes, but it actually doesn't. It's completely arbitrary and probably illegal, and they've been increasing like crazy. DIR fees have been increasing like crazy, and I think that's putting more pressure on corporations, because corporations, they have to show that they're growing every quarter. So if you're at CVS and you run a pharmacy division, that division needs to be making more money than it did last year. And that's hard when DIR fees are increasing every year, which is basically the number one financial challenge. And so it gets trickled down into pharmacies, and what pharmacists are having to do is do more vaccines, fill more prescriptions with less help. And what could go wrong? I don't know, patient safety could be an issue, for instance. If you're doing that many vaccines, are you when we're taught in school to do a vaccine, we're looking at, vaccine, ask the patient, is this the vaccine you're getting? Is it expired? Going through all this stuff. If you're doing like tons and tons of these, I don't know, the mistakes can happen, and the pharmacist gets the blame for it, but really there's an environment that's been created, which is unsafe. So my hat goes off to the folks that did that walkout at, I think it was Walgreens. And I think more pharmacists should be unionizing. And there's an argument against unions that they're kind of anti-capitalist or something like that. But actually, they're not, because you're pulling your resources with other people that have their own labor, their own license. And you're saying, okay, we're like a company, and we're going to negotiate on our behalf for ourselves. And because the companies are not taking our interests to heart, but we're operating this business, this pharmacy, under our license. And, CVS doesn't have a pharmacist license. They have a pharmacy license, but they don't have a pharmacist license. Only the pharmacist can, hold that license, and they need you. So should pharmacists be unionized? And I think they should. There's a good thing in some states. They have something called pharmacist to technician ratios, which is great, especially if you're in a lower volume store, because it can kind of protect you. I worked in a situation where I had a lower volume store and it was open for a long period of time, and the corporate whatever decided that they wanted it to be open for 13 hours, but they don't want to pay a, you know, tech to be there. So I actually didn't even have one tech for every hour that we were open. In a state like Delaware, that would have been illegal. So I think pharmacist to technician ratios are a good thing. I think a lunch break should be mandatory. I mean, that's crazy that we are professionals. We have doctorates and we don't have a lunch break. It's nuts, right? So a union would solve that problem. It would solve the ratio problem because that would just be in the union contract. And one thing I noticed is that some like I worked for a company that had a union for other employees, so management kind of had a adversarial relationship with the employees, and that's kind of how they treated you as a pharmacist. But you weren't represented by a union, so I think we should just unionize. One other thing I wanted to touch on was something called metrics. So a metric is like how many of one thing you do. It's like how many widgets you make per hour. So a widget might be how many vaccines you give per hour, how many prescriptions you do per hour, how many phone calls you answer, and metrics have this quality about them. They have, in my mind, I think they're necessary if you're operating a business. You need to look at metrics. The key one is just, am I profitable? How much money am I making? That's huge, obviously. But it gets down to the more metricized everything becomes, the more, I think, totalitarian you kind of feel as the person who's working under that schematic. Because you're like, okay, I need to do check this box 6 times today or in this hour and do this thing and this thing. And it gets to be extremely stressful. And it's kind of inhumane. So I think pharmacy has become kind of over-metriced or over-metricized or something, pharmacy has too many metrics, I think, in my mind. And often I think MBA schools, they come up with new schemes for managing people. It's key performance indicators or net promoter score, or net promoter score is like this idea that there's only like a few people out there that are actually promoting a business through word of mouth. So it's how likely is somebody going to promote the bit. It's all those things that MBAs create, and then we kind of have to live with them, and they just add stress. And I think a union would help a lot with that, because we could at least go to the table and discuss some of these things that we're having to work under. And we are the pharmacists, and this is our license. All right, so I want to thank you guys for watching Jeff the Pharmacist and Millie. Appreciate it. And if you have any thoughts about unions or pharmacists being in unions, leave a comment below. Thanks a lot for watching.